My name is Cordelia Matthews. I'm 29, and I just learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty when my own family decided I wasn't worthy of sitting with guests at my brother's wedding, the wedding I was paying for. Standing in that country club kitchen surrounded by catering staff, while my ex-boyfriend sat at the head table with my replacement, I realized that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who share your DNA. What happened next would tear our family apart forever, expose decades of favoritism, and prove that karma has a way of settling scores when you least expect it. Before we dive into this wild family betrayal story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, and if you're ready for a revenge tale that'll make you question everything about family. Loyalty. Smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this story has more twists than a pretzel factory. Trust me, you won't see this ending coming, and by the time we're done, you'll understand why sometimes walking away is the most powerful move you can make. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, I was always the responsible one. While my younger brother Mason lived his life like a perpetual spring break, partying through college, bouncing between jobs, and leaving a trail of broken relationships, I built my career from the ground up. By 25, I owned a successful digital marketing agency, bought my own house, and had been the family's unofficial bank for years. Mason was the golden child, though. He had that effortless charm that made our parents overlook his constant financial emergencies and relationship drama. Mom would always say, "Oh, Mason's just finding himself," while expecting me to have my life perfectly together at all times. When I was 22 and struggling to pay rent while building my business, asking for help was met with lectures about responsibility. When Mason needed bail money at 26, it was just boys being boys. The dynamic became clear early on. I was the giver, Mason was the taker, and our parents enabled it completely. Every family gathering included some story about Mason's latest adventure, while my business achievements were met with polite nods and quick subject changes. I stopped sharing my successes years ago because it was clear they made everyone uncomfortable. Then came Brittany. Mason met her at some beach bar in Florida, and within 3 months she was pregnant. Our parents were thrilled, finally a grandchild. The fact that Mason barely knew this woman and had no steady income didn't matter. What mattered was that their precious son was settling down. I tried to like Brittany, I really did. But she had this way of making little comments that cut deep. "Oh, Cordelia, you work so much, don't you want a family?" Or, "It must be lonely in that big house all by yourself." She'd say these things with a sweet smile while our parents nodded along as if my independence was somehow tragic. The pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 12 weeks. I genuinely felt for them both and offered my support. But instead of bringing them closer together, the loss revealed how shallow their relationship really was. Mason went back to his partying ways, and Brittany started showing up at family dinners alone, playing the grieving almost mother to perfection. Our parents ate it up. Suddenly, Brittany was the daughter they never had, and I was chopped liver. She'd call Mom to chat about recipes and decorating tips, things I'd never been interested in but apparently should have been. Dad would spend hours talking to her about his golf game, something he'd never done with me despite my genuine interest in sports. The real kicker came when Mason and Brittany broke up twice. Each time Brittany would call our parents crying, and each time they'd comfort her and encourage them to work it out. When I went through my own brutal breakup with Derek, who I'd dated for 3 years, I got a "you're strong, you'll be fine," and that was it. But Mason and Brittany always found their way back to each other, usually when one of them needed something. A place to stay, money for rent, emotional support, after some other relationship didn't work out. Our parents' house became their personal revolving door of convenience. The engagement happened last Christmas. Mason proposed with a ring I later found out he'd bought with money borrowed from Dad. The whole family went crazy with excitement, planning and plotting like this was the royal wedding. Mom immediately started talking about venues and guest lists, while Dad discussed budgets that I knew they couldn't afford on their retirement income. That's when the hints started. You know, Cordelia family helps family, Mom would say meaningfully. Brittany deserves a beautiful wedding and you've been so blessed financially. The expectation was clear I was supposed to foot the bill for this circus. When I hesitated, the guilt trips began. Brittany would tear up whenever wedding costs came up, talking about her dream day and how she just wanted something beautiful to remember after losing the baby. Mason would joke about having a cheap wedding while looking at me pointedly. Our parents would sigh dramatically about their fixed income and how they wished they could give their son the wedding he deserved. Eventually I caved, not because I wanted to, but because saying no would have made me the villain in a story where I was already struggling to find my place. I agreed to cover the wedding costs, venue catering, flowers, photography, the works. We're talking about $60,000 for their intimate 150-person celebration. Once I agreed to pay, everything changed. Suddenly I wasn't the generous sister funding their dream wedding, I was the unwanted third wheel in their planning process. Every suggestion I made was shot down, every opinion I offered was ignored, and every attempt to be involved was met with resistance. Brittany took control immediately. She'd already been planning this wedding in her head for months apparently, and my money was just the key to making it happen. When I suggested we sit down together to go over the budget, she looked at me like I'd suggested we plan her funeral. "Oh, Cordelia, you're so sweet to offer, but Mason and I have this handled," she'd say with that saccharine smile. "We know exactly what we want." What they wanted, it turned out, was everything. The most expensive venue in the county. Premium open bar all night. A 7-course plated dinner. Designer flowers flown in from California. A photographer whose wedding packages started at $8,000. When I gently suggested some cost-saving alternatives, maybe a buffet instead of plated service, local flowers instead of imported ones, Brittany's face would crumple like I'd just kicked her puppy. "I just thought this was my one special day," she'd whisper, and Mason would immediately jump to her defense. "Come on, Cordy, it's not like you can't afford it," he'd say, using the childhood nickname that used to be endearing but now felt condescending. "You're always talking about how well your business is doing." The worst part was how our parents handled it. Instead of mediating or setting reasonable expectations, they'd just nod along with whatever Brittany wanted. When she insisted on upgrading the linens to imported Italian silk, a change that added $3,000 to the bill, Mom actually said, "A bride should have what makes her happy on her special day." I started feeling like a walking ATM rather than a family member. Phone calls from Brittany always started with, "I hope you don't mind, but we found this amazing," followed by some new expense. The floral arrangements went from simple centerpieces to elaborate installations. The photography package expanded to include an engagement shoot, bridal portraits, and a day-after session. The catering menu upgraded from chicken and fish to filet mignon and lobster. When I tried to talk to Mason privately about the spiraling costs, he brushed me off. "Look, I know it's a lot, but Brittany's been through so much with the miscarriage and everything. She deserves this happiness." It was like emotional blackmail wrapped in a bow. Every time I expressed concern about money, someone would bring up the lost pregnancy, and I'd be made to feel like a monster for caring about finances when they were dealing with real problems. The breaking point came during a venue walkthrough. The wedding planner, a sharp woman named Victoria who clearly recognized a paying customer when she saw one, kept directing all her questions to me. Where did I want the cocktail hour set up? What were my preferences for the ceremony decorations? How did I envision the reception flow? Each time Brittany would jump in with her own answers, getting increasingly agitated that the planner wasn't focusing on her. Finally, she snapped. "Excuse me, but I'm the bride here," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I don't know why you keep asking her opinion about my wedding." Victoria looked confused, glancing between us. "I apologize, but my notes indicate that Miss Matthews is the primary contact and financial decision-maker for this event." The silence that followed was deafening. Brittany's face went through about 5 different shades of red, while Mason looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Our parents, who had insisted on coming along, suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. That's when I realized the truth. To them, I wasn't family participating in a celebration. I was a vendor. I was the bank, the ATM, the convenient source of funding for their perfect day. My role was to write checks and stay quiet, not to have opinions or feelings about the event I was paying for. From that moment on, I was systematically excluded from every decision. Group chats about wedding details mysteriously didn't include me. Planning meetings happened without my knowledge. When I'd ask about updates, I'd get vague responses about how everything was under control. The final insult came 2 weeks before the wedding when Brittany called to discuss seating arrangements. I assumed this was finally something I'd have input on. After all, half the guest list was filled with my extended family and friends. "So, we've been working on the seating chart," she said, that fake sweetness creeping back into her voice. "And we have a tiny little problem." The tiny little problem, as Brittany so delicately put it, was that my ex-boyfriend Derek was coming to the wedding. Not just coming, he was bringing his new girlfriend, the same woman he'd left me for 8 months earlier. And somehow, in the twisted logic of wedding planning, this meant I couldn't sit with the rest of the family. "You understand, right?" Brittany continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "It would just be so awkward for everyone if you and Derek were at the same table. We thought it would be more comfortable for you if you sat somewhere and quieter." My blood ran cold. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "Well, there's this lovely little table near the kitchen doors. It's actually perfect. You'll be close to everything, and you won't have to deal with any uncomfortable situations." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want to seat me at the reject table at a wedding I'm paying for because my ex-boyfriend is coming?" "It's not a reject table," she protested, but her tone suggested she knew exactly what it was. "It's just more private. And honestly, we thought you might prefer it since you've been so stressed about the costs and everything." The manipulation was breathtaking. She was spinning my exclusion as a favor to me, as if banishing me to social Siberia was somehow for my own good. But that wasn't even the worst part. "Where exactly is Derek sitting?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. There was a pause. "Well, he's at the head table with the wedding party." My vision actually blurred for a moment. Derek, the man who'd cheated on me, lied to me, and left me for his coworker, was sitting at the head table, while I, the person funding this entire circus, was being relegated to the kitchen. "How is Derek at the head table? He's not in the wedding party." Another pause. Mason asked him to be a groomsman. They've gotten really close lately. That's when the pieces clicked into place. Derek hadn't just been invited as a random guest. He'd been actively recruited, brought into the inner circle, given a place of honor at my own family's wedding. While I was being pushed to the sidelines, my ex-boyfriend was being embraced as family. "When did this happen?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "A few weeks ago." Mason said Derek's been such a good friend during all the wedding stress, and they thought it would be nice to include him officially. Wedding stress. The stress caused by planning a wedding with my money while excluding me from every decision. And somehow, Derek had been positioned as the supportive friend helping them through it. I hung up without another word and immediately called Mason. When he answered, I could hear laughter and music in the background. They were out celebrating something, probably another wedding milestone I hadn't been invited to. Hey Cordy, what's up? Did you really make Derek a groomsman? The background noise suddenly quieted like he'd stepped outside or moved away from the group. Look, I know it's weird, but it's not weird, Mason. It's cruel. You made my ex-boyfriend who destroyed me part of your wedding party while seating me next to the kitchen staff. It's not like that, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Derek's been really supportive, and Brittany thought what? That humiliating me at a wedding I'm paying for would be fun. That watching Derek play happy family with you guys while I eat dinner alone would teach me some kind of lesson. You're being dramatic. Those three words hit me like a physical blow. Dramatic. For being hurt that my own family had chosen my ex-boyfriend over me. For objecting to being treated like a pariah at an event I was funding. For expecting basic respect from the people who were supposed to love me. Am I being dramatic, Mason, or am I finally seeing things clearly? Look, we can talk about the seating arrangement. Maybe we can move some people around, don't bother, I said, and in that moment everything became crystal clear. I'm done. What do you mean done? I mean I'm done paying for a wedding where I'm not welcome. I'm done funding a party where my ex-boyfriend gets treated better than I do. I'm done being the family ATM while you guys treat me like an inconvenience. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he spoke and his voice was cold. You can't just pull out now? Everything's already paid for. Actually, most things aren't paid for yet. Final payments aren't due until the week of the wedding. Funny how that works. I could hear him breathing heavily, probably realizing for the first time that their perfect wedding was funded by someone they'd been treating terribly. Someone who had options they'd never considered. Cordelia, please. Don't do this to Brittany. She's been through so much. Stop. I cut him off. Don't you dare use her miscarriage to manipulate me into funding my own humiliation. That's low even for you. It's not manipulation, it's reality. We can't afford this wedding without you. And there it was. The truth that nobody wanted to say out loud. They needed me, but they didn't want me. They wanted my money, but not my presence. They wanted my generosity, but not my opinions. Then maybe you should have thought about that before deciding Derek was more important than I am. I ended the call and sat in my car outside my office, hands shaking as the full weight of the situation hit me. This wasn't just about wedding, seating, or hurt feelings. This was about years of being taken for granted, treated as lesser expected to give, without receiving even basic respect in return. The really devastating part was realizing it wasn't an accident. The kitchen seating wasn't a thoughtless mistake, it was a deliberate choice. They'd discussed it, planned it, decided that my comfort mattered less than Derek's. They'd made my ex-boyfriend part of their inner circle while pushing me to the margins. For the first time in my adult life, I was done being the good daughter, the responsible sister, the family fixer. I was done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. It was time for some consequences. The next morning I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No more guilt, no more second-guessing, no more wondering if I was overreacting. They'd made their choice and now I was making mine. I started with the venue. Continental Country Club's events coordinator, Margaret answered on the second ring. Miss Matthews, how lovely to hear from you. I trust everything is on track for next weekend. Actually, Margaret, I need to discuss the payment situation. I'm going to need to cancel my guarantee. There was a pause. I'm sorry, what do you mean exactly? I mean, I'm withdrawing my financial backing for the Matthews-Chen wedding. Any payments that haven't been processed need to be stopped immediately. Oh my. Margaret's professional composure slipped slightly. Miss Matthews, we have contracts in place. The final payment is due Monday and the wedding is next Saturday. I understand that. But if you check your contracts, you'll see that I'm listed as the guarantor, not the responsible party. The bride and groom will need to handle the payments themselves now. I could hear typing in the background as she pulled up the files. I see. Well, this is quite unusual. Without the guarantee, we'll need the full balance by Monday or we'll have to cancel the event. I understand completely. You might want to contact Mr. Matthews directly to discuss payment arrangements. After ending that call, I contacted the caterer, the florist, the photographer, and the band. Same conversation each time. Professional confusion followed by the reality that their contracts were with Mason and Brittany, not me. I'd simply been the financial guarantor, and guarantors can withdraw their backing. The beauty of it was the timing. With the wedding a week away, everything was already ordered, arranged, and prepared. Canceling now would mean not just losing deposits but paying cancellation fees and rush charges for any vendor they could find as replacements. My phone started ringing around noon. Mason first, then Brittany, then Mom, then Dad. I let them all go to voicemail while I finished my calls. The last one was to Victoria, the wedding planner. "Cordelia, thank goodness," she said when she heard my voice. "I've been getting calls all morning from vendors saying payments have been declined. There must be some mistake." "No mistake, Victoria. I've withdrawn my financial support. But the wedding is in 6 days, I'm aware. You'll need to work with the bride and groom directly now. Cordelia, I don't think you understand. The total outstanding balance is over $40,000. They can't possibly, then I guess they'll need to make some adjustments to their plans." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. As a wedding planner, she'd probably seen family drama before, but this was clearly a new level. "Is there anything I can do to help resolve this situation?" "You can plan whatever wedding they can actually afford," I said. "I hear the community center is available on short notice." By 2 p.m. my voicemail was full. Text messages were pouring in from family members, friends, and even some of the vendors. The news was spreading fast. The Matthews wedding was in crisis. I finally listened to the voicemails around 3 p.m. more out of curiosity than any desire to reconcile. Mason's first message was angry. "Cordelia, what the hell is wrong with you? You can't just destroy our wedding because you're having a tantrum." His second message, left 2 hours later, was panicked. "Cordy, please call me back. We can fix this. We can change the seating arrangement. Whatever you want." Brittany's messages started with bewilderment and quickly escalated to fury. "I don't understand why you're doing this to us. We've never done anything to hurt you." By her third message, she was sobbing. "Please don't ruin my wedding. Please. I'll do anything." Mom's approach was pure guilt. "Cordelia Rose Matthews, I cannot believe you would be so vindictive. This is your brother's wedding. Brittany is practically family. How could you be so cruel?" Dad tried the financial angle. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but this isn't just about money you've already spent. You're going to cost them thousands in cancellation fees. Is that really what you want?" The irony was incredible. Suddenly, I was the cruel one. I was the vindictive sister ruining their perfect day. Not the family that had excluded me from every decision about an event I was funding. Not the brother who'd chosen my ex-boyfriend over me. Not the future sister-in-law who'd tried to exile me to the kitchen of my own generosity. I was the problem for finally saying no. Around 4 p.m., Derek called. That was a surprise. "Cordelia, it's Derek. I heard about what's happening with the wedding. Did you now look? I know things ended badly between us, but Mason and Brittany don't deserve this. They're good people." The audacity was breathtaking. My ex-boyfriend who'd cheated on me and broken my heart was calling to lecture me about how good the people were who'd chosen him over me. "You're right, Derek. They are good people. Such good people that they made you a groomsman while seating me next to the dishwashers." "I didn't know about the seating thing," he said quietly. "Bullshit. You knew exactly where you stood in their priorities, and you were fine with it as long as it benefited you. That's not. I never wanted you to be hurt. Then you should have declined the groomsmen invitation. You should have told them it was inappropriate, but you didn't, because you liked being chosen over me. He was quiet for a moment. What can I do to fix this? Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do to fix this because this isn't about the wedding anymore. This is about respect, and you can't fix years of disrespect with a phone call. I hung up and turned off my phone. Whatever happened next, I was done being the villain in their story, simply for refusing to be the victim in mine. By Sunday, 3 days before the wedding, my family had moved into full crisis mode. I know this because my best friend Sarah kept me updated on the social media drama unfolding in real time. Your mom is posting on Facebook about family loyalty and Christian forgiveness, Sarah reported during our wine and updates session. Very subtle. And Mason, he's posted one of those cryptic quotes about people showing their true colors and how real family sticks together through everything. Very mature. What about Brittany? Sarah scrolled through her phone. Oh, she's going full martyr. Posted a long thing about how some people want to destroy your happiness and how she's learning who her real family is. The comments are interesting. I took another sip of wine. How interesting. Well, your Aunt Linda asked what happened, and when no one answered directly, she started asking around. Apparently, word is getting out about the seating situation. That was the thing about small-town drama secrets don't stay secret for long. By Monday, half our extended family knew that I'd been funding the wedding while being treated like an unwanted guest. The other half knew that Derek was a groomsman despite being my ex who'd cheated on me. The family reactions were divided. My cousin Jennifer, who'd been through her own messy divorce, was firmly Team Cordelia. She commented on Mom's Facebook post, maybe ask why Cordelia felt disrespected instead of blaming her for having boundaries. My Uncle Bob, always the peacemaker, was trying to stay neutral. Family is family. Everyone needs to take a step back and forgive. But my grandmother, bless her heart, posted a comment that went viral in our family circles. If someone pays for your party, you don't seat them with the help. I raised you better than that, Patricia. She was talking to my mother and everyone knew it. By Tuesday, the vendors were starting to leak information. Small towns have small vendor communities and everyone talks. Word got out that the wedding had been completely funded by the sister, who'd then been excluded from all planning and given the worst seating assignment. Margaret from the country club apparently told someone at the grocery store that she'd never seen anything like it and that the family was scrambling to come up with $40,000 in 2 days. That someone told someone else, and by evening half the town knew the wedding was on the verge of collapse. Wednesday morning brought the first crack in their united front. Brittany called me, and this time her voice was different. No tears, no manipulation, just exhaustion. Cordelia, can we please talk, just you and me? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at the coffee shop downtown. She looked terrible, pale, hollow-eyed, wearing sweatpants like she'd given up on maintaining appearances. I need you to know that I didn't know, she said before I'd even sat down. About Derek, I mean. About what he did to you. I raised an eyebrow. Really, you've been part of this family for 2 years, and no one mentioned that my ex-boyfriend cheated on me. I knew you dated, and I knew it ended badly, but Mason said it was just incompatibility. He never told me Derek cheated. And when did you find this out? Yesterday? Your cousin Jennifer called me directly and asked if I'd lost my mind making your cheating ex a groomsman while sticking you in the corner. That's the first I heard the whole story. I studied her face looking for signs of deception, but she seemed genuinely shocked. So, what now? I kicked Derek out of the wedding party, she said quietly. Mason's furious, but I told him, if Derek stays, I walk. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. And the seating. You're at the family table, where you should have been all along. Brittany, this isn't just about seating arrangements anymore. I know. She stared into her coffee cup. Mason told me what you said about being the family ATM, and I've been thinking about it, and… You're right. That caught me off guard. I am. We've treated you terribly. Not just with this wedding, but for years. Every time we needed money, we came to you. Every time we had good news, we celebrated without thinking to include you. Every time there was a family decision, we just assumed you'd go along with whatever we wanted because you always have. She looked up at me with genuine tears in her eyes, not the manipulative kind, but the kind that come from real shame. I've been so focused on having the perfect wedding that I forgot about having perfect relationships with the people who matter. And you matter, Cordelia. You matter a lot, and we've been awful to you. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Mason won't. He's too proud, and he's scared that admitting he was wrong means admitting he's been a terrible brother for years. But I can't get married knowing that we destroyed your relationship with this family over party planning and egos. She reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm not asking you to pay for the wedding. We'll figure something out, even if it means getting married at City Hall. I'm asking for forgiveness. Real forgiveness, not just sweeping this under the rug and pretending it didn't happen. For the first time in days, I felt something other than anger. Not quite forgiveness, but something softer. Something that acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, some of this damage could be repaired. What about Mason? I asked. He'll come around. Or he won't, and I'll marry someone who thinks his sister isn't worth basic respect. But I'm betting he'll come around. Thursday evening, Mason showed up at my house. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something I'd never seen before, humility. Can I come in? He asked. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to let him stand on my doorstep and beg to make him feel as excluded as I'd felt. But Brittany's words from the day before echoed in my mind. Real forgiveness meant being better than they'd been, not just giving them a taste of their own medicine. We sat in my living room, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Finally he spoke. I've been a shit brother. Yeah, you have. For years. Not just with this wedding, but for years. He ran his hands through his hair. I've been thinking about what you said about being the family ATM, and I realized you're right. Every time I needed something, I came to you. Every time I screwed up, you bailed me out. And instead of being grateful, I just expected it. Why? I asked. Why was it so easy to take from me but so hard to include me? He was quiet for a long time. Because you were always so together. So successful, so independent. It was easier to think you didn't need us than to admit we needed you. That's not an excuse, Mason. I know it's not. He looked at me directly for the first time since arriving. I made Derek a groomsman because he told me you'd probably be uncomfortable seeing him, and maybe it would be easier if he was part of the wedding party instead of just a guest. I thought I was being considerate. By excluding me instead, I didn't think it through. Even when I think I'm being thoughtful, it's usually just thoughtless in a different way. The honesty was brutal, but it was more than I'd gotten from him in years. Real acknowledgement of the pattern, not just excuses for this particular incident. What about the money? I asked. We'll figure it out. Brittany's parents offered to help, and I can take out a loan for the rest. It won't be the wedding we planned, but it'll be our wedding paid for with our money. And if I wanted to help, hypothetically, I'd say thank you, but I wouldn't expect it. And I'd make sure you were treated like family, not like a vendor. We talked for another hour. Not just about the wedding, but about years of accumulated resentment and misunderstanding. About how I'd felt taken for granted and how he'd felt like nothing he did could measure up to my achievements. About how our parents' favoritism had poisoned our relationship before we'd even realized it was happening. It wasn't a complete reconciliation that would take time and consistent action, not just words, but it was a start. The wedding happened on Saturday, scaled down but beautiful. Brittany wore a simpler dress. The flowers were local wildflowers instead of imported arrangements, and the reception was at the VFW hall instead of the country club. But she glowed with happiness, and Mason looked at her like she'd hung the moon. I sat at the family table between my grandmother and my cousin Jennifer. Derek was notably absent, not just from the wedding party but from the guest list entirely. During the speeches, Mason thanked me publicly for teaching him what real family support looks like, and apologized for taking too long to learn the lesson. The most satisfying moment came during the reception when my Aunt Linda, who'd been following the drama on Facebook, cornered my mother. "Patricia, I hope you've learned something from all this," she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "That girl has been nothing but generous to this family, and you all treated her terribly. If my daughter was funding my son's wedding, she'd be sitting at the head table, not exiled to the kitchen." Mom's face went through several shades of red, but she nodded and actually apologized to me later. Not a full accounting of years of favoritism, but an acknowledgement that they'd handled the situation poorly. The real victory, though, wasn't the apology or the better seating or even the public vindication. It was the boundary I'd established. For the first time in my adult life, I'd said no to something my family wanted and the world hadn't ended. They'd been forced to confront the reality that their behavior had consequences, and that my generosity wasn't unlimited or unconditional. 6 months later, my relationship with Mason has slowly improved. We have dinner once a month, and he actually asks about my life instead of just updating me on his. Brittany and I have developed a real friendship built on mutual respect rather than family obligation. She's become the sister I never had instead of the sister-in-law I resented. Most importantly, I've learned to value myself the way I'd always valued others. No more automatic yes to family requests. No more funding other people's dreams while neglecting my own. No more setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to stop enabling their worst behaviors. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about natural consequences. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, but simply refusing to participate in your own mistreatment. Looking back, that moment in the coffee shop when Brittany asked for real forgiveness was the turning point. Not because forgiveness erased what happened, but because it opened the door for something better. Real relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency and family obligation. The wedding that almost didn't happen became the catalyst for honest conversations that should have happened years earlier. And while I'll never get back the money I spent on flowers and photographers and premium linens, I gained something more valuable, a family that finally sees me as a person, not just a provider. Have you ever had to set a boundary with family that felt impossible at the time, but changed everything for the better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama and the lessons we learn from standing up for ourselves. And don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to expect respect from the people who claim to love you. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, family isn't just about blood, it's about how we treat each other. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than you deserve. Here's to setting boundaries, demanding respect and discovering that saying no to mistreatment is actually saying yes to better relationships.